Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Camera Tuesday. In today's episode we're going to talk about Kinefinity cinema camera lineups. So let's dive right into it. So what is it? It's basically high-end cinema camera for a low price of $12,000. Now you might be like, that's a lot of money. Now you have to understand that price in the context of it. Think of it this way. This camera is trying to be as powerful or if not higher than RE. Red. Those cameras are like the luckiest you can get is like $40,000 and $60,000. Again, I'm not talking about second hand, I'm not talking about old models, I'm talking current new. So in those sort of concept, $12,000 is chump change. So it's a cheap camera. On top of that, they directly went from basically sub 35 millimeter sensor. Basically you have super 35, they went a bit smaller, which was much bigger than basically micro four third, but not as big as super 35. So they went some awkward sensor, but they started to learn from that and they directly gave super 35 millimeter, a proper cinema sensor lineup, and then now they have directly released a full frame system. So you can see, like, you can have a very tiny sensor or a full frame sensor. That is a very rare thing for $12,000. That's free, and they're giving upwards of 6K at 75 frame per second. That's a high enough refresh rate. Now the whole idea of this, like, if you look at it, it will looks like an alternate to red, and it's basically somebody looked at the red and it's like, okay, these are the things they are doing right, these are the things they are doing wrong, let's just fix it. So same engineering principle, either you do it first or you do it better. So they are trying to do it better. Now they have multiple options in them. When I'm talking about this camera system, there are 3 bodies, multiple lens mount, multiple attachments. They are like a system, they are an ecosystem. So you can directly go for the head and directly go for full frame, which is MAVO LF. You can go super 35, which is MAVO LF, and then you have another model which I do not recommend. It's like that's such an awkward sensor. So that is it. So question becomes, why the hell, if you want to make a cinema, low budget movie or indie movie or things of that nature, why you should consider Kinefinity rather than any other big manufacturer? Well, first and the foremost is cheaper. Like a full frame cinema camera at less than $20,000-$30,000, it's like, it's unheard of. It's quite significant cheaper. Like that translates to, you can directly afford cinema lenses. You don't have to buy cinema rent cinema lenses. You can directly buy it. So that's a very significant interest. On top of that, because they have learned from basically every other company that have done this before, they have much higher usability factor. Basically their cameras are much easier to use. And because of the recent debacle with red media that is coming off, is like, you are just using MSATA and you are like charging like 10 times the required cost. And again, there is nothing magical about it. They're just overcharging it and they're selling it as like, proprietary hoo-ha. It's not proprietary. So they are like, okay, let's not go down that route and directly use SATA SSD, normal SSD that you use in your laptop and desktop, and 7mm one. Now of course, if you are not careful, you may buy some old SSDs which are like 9mm, but you have to double check. New ones are generally 7mm, so it's nothing fancy. You just have to be careful with that. Now they do ask you to please buy a high-end SSD. Don't buy like the cheapest possible, like Western Digital green drive. They do not have enough read and write to endure it, so be careful of that. But other than that, it's quite awesome in terms of its media. Now in terms of lens also, because they are learning from other competitors, they are like, okay, Sony has variable electronic ND, which is quite amazing for outdoor shooting. Ta-da! They have their own Kinefinity lens mount, which is like, if you have the camera, you will get that mount directly. You have to buy another mount to put on that mount. That way you can get whatever you want. You want Sony mount, you want PL mount, you want Nikon mount, and all that. You can get that. So they will give you electronic ND. You can buy something with only electric pass through. You can buy with field reducer. If you are trying to directly shoot, let's say something smaller, you have full frame lens, but you want to shoot in, let's say, super 35, you can utilize this focal reducer and enjoy the benefits of high dynamic range and all that jazz. So it's quite amazing. They have like 6 attachment possibilities. So a lot of options you have, like flat out. The moment you go into their website, it's like, you have a lot of options. And then comes one of the most interesting part is like, Red is also charging you like $1,000 for their hand grip. They are also charging you $1,000 for the hand grip. Then question becomes, how the heck is cheaper? Well, they are giving you battery in the hand grip. Now that is quite amazing, because this part you see, it's a backplate. You can remove it and still utilize it. All you can do is just mount a LCD and done with it. It's like, don't even mount that. So benefit of that, if you are doing run and gun shoot and all you need is, let's say, recording time of 1 hour, this battery can easily do upwards of 2 hours. So flat out you can do that. And on top of that, you may be like, okay, I'm like, large cinema shoot where I have to do multiple shootings, I'm gonna use V mount batteries. You can still utilize that. How? Basically you can utilize hot swapping. Basically, let's say between shoot you are removing SSD and dumping the SSD, and then you realize, hey, the V mount battery is drained. You can just remove the battery and just swap in the new one. During that swapping, this battery will take over, so you can do hot swap. That's quite amazing, especially if you are doing very fast paced shooting where you are just like swapping SSDs, swapping batteries, and like just doing something long. Basically, like in case of Indian movie industry, it would be item songs take a very large amount of time to do recording. So in those sort of scenarios, this will be a godsend that they can directly swap batteries rather than like having figuring out AC power system and all that. So that's what I'm trying to like. Kinefinity is like looking at Red and it's like, okay, modular system, it has some advantages, some side effects, and Red is not pushing it. Red is like, yeah, what else are you gonna do? Like there is RE, but it's super expensive. Red is the only shop, and they're like, hold my beer. Like, it's cheaper, it has far more practical options, and the fact is, like, let's say you are doing low budget things, so you don't have the luxury of like super high end stuff. The fact that you can use SSD directly saves you a serious amount of time. Like, you can have hot swappable base in your computer. You just take it out, plug it in, edit on it directly if you want to, because it's a SSD, a computer grade SSD. So there is a lot of polish into this. There is not like you buy this and you're like, whoa, this is the greatest thing. No, it's just like little things that are making it far more utilizable. It's not like, oh, I bought this, now I have to work according to it. No, this camera will work according to you. So that is why people are choosing Kinefinity. So is this the next Red killer? Well, not yet. You have to understand, in terms of if you directly compare it to Red has a core advantage being Red generally has higher frame per second and higher resolution. They go upwards of 8K. So in those sort of contexts, you have to be aware this is not as powerful yet. They are releasing a newer version, and sometimes they are releasing firmware updates that is allowing their 65 frame per second to go to 120 frame per second. So they are pushing it, and they have some breathing room left yet. So it's not like, okay, that's it. They are pushing it, but do not expect that it can ever match the frame rates or resolution of Red system. So flat out, if those things are absolute priority, don't think about this. On top of that, now many cinema industry rely on redundancy and in terms of supply chain. Basically, you have a camera, you're doing the shoot, camera breaks, you can either call someone or somebody will come and replace it, or you can drop it to someone and they're gonna replace it. That is not true for this camera system yet. If you are in America, you have to go through Pro VTV and they will take care of the repair and all that. They do in-house repair, so it is very quickly. They don't have to send it to like China for repair unless it's a very serious damage. But it's still much slower compared to RE, and it's considerably slower than Red system. So that is a kind of difficult situation. People want the camera system to be reliable in such a way that, hey, it's a big investment. If something goes down, I want it to be like recovered very quickly. So that is a big if. Right now, that's a big if. Now, as I said, like RE has a luxury when it comes to highlights. RE is like, highlight, I got this. And if you want dramatic scene, you want to be like Zack Snyder, a Red camera is like, I got that dramatic feel. Now this camera does have a very good low light, does have all those other jazz, but it does suffer from lame highlights. So highlight of this camera is not like if you're gonna take a photo and you're like, okay, highlights, you're not exposing properly, you're not gonna get the best highlight possible. Now again, is it definitely much better than your point and shoot DSLR and all that, but highlight wise it does not have that kind of luxury. They are still polishing that part out. So if you're buying this camera and you're like, you want to utilize this, please pay attention to the highlights. Everything else is awesome, it's just highlight is like it leaves a bit more to be desired. On top of that, you still have to do color correction, because RE has a luxury where it's like, they had enough research history for 100 years. They're like, yeah, this is what most people use. Just give that romantic LUT. And Red is like, let's go dramatic, and this is our LUT. So here you still have to do some manual correction. You cannot just be like, okay, this is the output and you can just utilize it. You can do that, but people will urge you to use color correction. And it does have a USB port where you can directly plug a pen drive and upload your LUTs directly into that. So you can have custom LUT, which are like, hey, I think this will get my job done directly. Utilize that. So it is a very functional, capable camera. Just have room to grow, like it still needs some growing period. Basically, first the support has to go, then in terms of like final output, because you have to understand, many cinema camera utilize sometimes film, sometimes a digital camera, sometimes a Canon 5D if they are having crash scenes and all that, because they can't use GoPros, so they utilize those sort of DSLRs as a disposable camera. And color corrector, the people who do color correction, they do have enough skill that they can make high-end camera and cheap camera look more or less alike. Here you have that luxury because the raw output is good enough that you can literally make it to look whatever you want, but it still has some room to grow. Do not think buying this is like, oh, I bought this and done. It is cheaper, yes. It is capable camera, yes. Is it easy to use, like far quicker in terms of your throughput? Undeniably so. But is it red? No. Is it RE? No. So this was my presentation on basically Kinefinity cinema cameras. I hope you liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button. If you didn't like it, don't learn from it. I would urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me your extra disappointment, and leave a comment because I reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.